I'm a 32-year-old man, and I've been married to my wife, Kate, who is 30, for 4 years, although we've been together for 9 in total. Our relationship has been everything I could have hoped for, loving, supportive, and strong. We've always communicated well, rarely argue, and our intimacy has only grown stronger over the years. We've talked about a lot of things openly, including what would happen if one of us ever cheated. I made it clear that if that ever happened, the relationship would be over. Last weekend, Kate went home to visit her family. This wasn't unusual, as she often does this, but something about this particular weekend stands out. On the Friday before she left, we had a minor argument about the house not being tidy enough. It was a small disagreement, but it left us not talking much before she left. I trusted her completely, though, and didn't think much about it when I found out that she was going to meet some friends at a bar that night. Before going to sleep, I texted her, wishing her a good time, and went to bed. The next morning, I woke up to a missed call from Kate at 4 a.m. I immediately called her back, worried something had gone wrong, but she didn't answer. I tried calling her a few more times, but she didn't pick up. Several hours later, I finally received a message from her saying that she was fine and on her way home, which gave me a bit of relief. When Kate arrived home that afternoon, she looked completely different. She looked terrible, like she had been crying for hours. Her face was pale, and she wasn't wearing makeup, which was completely unlike her. She appeared to be a shell of herself. I knew immediately that something was wrong, but she wouldn't let me hug her or really say anything. She was distant and barely spoke. I sat her down on the couch, made her a cup of tea, and gently encouraged her to open up, trying to comfort her. After about 10 minutes of uncontrollable crying, she finally confessed that she had slept with someone else after the bar the previous night. At that moment, it felt like my mind just snapped. I can't explain it any better than that. It was as if my brain just stopped functioning properly. Without thinking, I got up, grabbed my car keys, and drove off, needing to get away. I ended up walking around a park for an hour, trying to clear my mind. Kate called me repeatedly during this time, but I turned off my phone. I had no idea what I was supposed to do, and everything seemed overwhelming. When I returned home, I grabbed 2 suitcases from the garage, packed some of Kate's clothes, and left them by the front door. I didn't want to stay there anymore. When I came downstairs, Kate was lying on the living room floor, curled up and sobbing. I called her best friend, who lives nearby, and asked if she could come pick Kate up. I told her that Kate could explain everything to her later, but I needed some space. Kate tried to stop me from leaving, grabbing my legs as I walked out. But I couldn't stay there. By the time I returned, Kate had already left, and the suitcases were gone. I spent the next day processing everything. After a lot of thought, I decided to answer one of Kate's calls. I told her I needed an email from her explaining every detail of what happened that night, emphasizing that if she left anything out, I wouldn't even consider trying to reconcile. She sent the email later that night, but I haven't opened it yet. Since then, I've been trying to keep busy, focusing on work, exercising, and sleeping to avoid thinking about what happened. A friend of Kate's showed up at my house, demanding to know what was going on. I told her to talk to Kate and shut the door in her face. I've been taking steps to prepare for divorce, moving money into separate accounts, and blocking Kate and all her friends on everything. I've been going through the motions, but I don't feel anger, sadness, or anything like that. It's more like I've been on autopilot, just getting through each day. Kate left a note at the door asking if we could meet, and while I'm conflicted, I don't know if it's worth it. Should I meet with her? Would anything change? Is there any point in trying to reconcile? And why do I feel like I'm just going through the motions, like a robot? How do I snap out of this numbness? When I came home the first time, Kate confirmed that the sex with the other man was consensual. She admitted she was drunk, but said she knew what she was doing. The next day, Kate came to the house to talk, and when I opened the door, she looked awful. She tried to hug me and apologized repeatedly, but I stopped her. We sat down to talk, and I told her that I would be recording the conversation, which she agreed to. I told her I hadn't read the email she had sent me and that I wanted her to explain everything in person. Kate told me that she had been at the bar with two friends, both of whom I know and like. She said she had only had a couple of drinks, surprisingly little for her, and was not very drunk. One of her friends, Sarah, has a younger brother named Max, who came to pick them up around midnight. Kate mentioned that Max had a crush on her for years, something I had heard them joke about before. After dropping Sarah off, Max and Kate were left alone, and Max suggested they go to his place to grab a bite to eat. Kate didn't want to drive the 20 minutes to her parents' house, so she agreed to just order an Uber from Max's apartment instead. Once they were inside, Kate tried to order the Uber but couldn't get one. Max then suggested that she stay in his bed while he took the sofa. At first, Kate refused, still trying to get an Uber, but eventually, she agreed to sit on Max's bed, and that's when he kissed her. She kissed him back, and they ended up having sex. Kate said that afterward, she was overwhelmed with guilt, and Max took her home. She cried for another hour, and then tried calling me to confess what she had done. As she told me this, I could see how upset she was. She kept apologizing, saying it was a huge mistake, and that she got caught up in the moment. She kept telling me that she only loved me, and this was all a terrible lapse in judgment. But as she spoke, something didn't add up. It didn't make sense, but I told her that it didn't matter at that point. I was done. Kate broke down again, and I told her that I would continue with the divorce preparations, but for the next month, we would remain separated and have no contact. I also told her that we both needed to get full STD panels, and that she had to tell our mutual friends and family what had happened. If she could follow these conditions, I said I would be open to meeting again in the future to see if there was any chance of salvaging our relationship. She agreed to everything, but made it clear that she didn't expect me to stay faithful to her during this time. I know some people might criticize my decision to still leave the door open for reconciliation, but I need to be absolutely certain that divorce is the right choice before I make a final decision. I'm still 99% sure that this is the end of our marriage, but I need to be 100% sure before I move forward.